Hello and welcome to everyone that's joined today's webinar. Today, what I'd like to do, I guess to put it simply, is to review everything that's new in CrossLink 2018. Because this year, our developers have really put together some awesome new enhancements for you all. Every year, we listen to the feedback our customers give us, such as yourselves, and our developers have the difficult task to put it all together and to make it happen. And I think this year, they really hit it out of the park. So let's take a look at everything we have to look forward to with CrossLink 2018, starting with our new mobile apps. And that's apps plural, because we have two new apps that you can use with CrossLink 1040 that integrate with the software, that run with the software. So we're certainly going to discuss what those apps are, how they work, and how you can use them this upcoming tax season. In addition to that, we have a brand new tax return preparation method, a new way to start and prepare a return in CrossLink 1040. We're going to take a look at the miscellaneous 1040 enhancements that the software has, all those little things that we've changed and additions that we've made to the software. And then finally, we can't forget about CrossLink Business as well. We've added some things to CrossLink Business, so we'll certainly review that. So as you can see, we have lots to cover today. So let's get right to it. Starting with the mobile apps. This year, this upcoming tax season, you'll have two new apps available to you. One designed for your customers, specifically designed for the taxpayer, and one designed for your tax office, one designed for you. Call it TaxPass for your customers and ERO Go for you. Now, when it comes to TaxPass, your customers will receive lots of benefits by using this application, and they're on the screen right now. They can, for example, start and update a tax return remotely. They can actually begin the preparation of a return on the app and submit that information to you. And that information will flow directly into the software. It's pretty crazy. But in addition to that, they could also do things like checking their refund status, sending pictures of any documents, like, for example, a driver's license, a W-2. They can send you that information, and that information would automatically flow into the document archives inside the return. They can sign for their tax return using this app, send messages to you that'll be received on the ERO Go app that I was mentioning before, and they can even look up your tax office information, such as your phone number, address, and things like that. And it's important to realize that, yes, these are benefits that affect your taxpayer, but there are also things that will make your life easier for this upcoming tax season. So let's take a look at what I mean by that, because everything that we see here, all these benefits that we have listed on the screen, they translate into benefits for you as well. For example, when it comes to starting and updating a tax return remotely, that's cool for the taxpayer, but what that essentially means for you is less data entry that you have to do when it comes to preparing the return. Instead of having to enter all this data yourself inside the CrossLink program, now the taxpayer is essentially doing your work for you. So that's less time, less effort preparing a return. Same thing with checking the refund status. We envision that potentially reducing the amount of calls that you get from customers. Instead of having these taxpayers wanting to know what's up with their return, when are they going to get their refund, now the customers have these tools available on their phone, so they can see what's going on with their return themselves and have all that information on hand. Similar to sending updates or sending the return remotely, when it comes to sending pics of documents electronically, well, that just means less time spent by the tax preparer having to scan all these documents themselves and attaching it to the document archive. Instead, all this stuff happens automatically. And the same thing applies for all these other benefits on the screen, whether it be reducing the time it takes to communicate with your taxpayers with the messaging system, easier access to contact information, or even just the need to capture a signature physically. Now all that stuff can be handled remotely, saving you time and saving you effort. So that's really what our goal is here, to make not only the experience for your taxpayer better this upcoming tax season, but also to make your life easier when using the software and when preparing a return. So if you are interested in your customers using this TaxPass app, there are some things that they're going to have to do. in order to get started using this TaxPass app. First thing, as you can imagine, they have to download the app. And it's going to be available soon on iOS and Android platforms, so they can go to the App Store or the Android Store and download them directly. And by soon, I mean, I believe the launch date we have so far is tomorrow. By the evening of tomorrow, both these apps should be available. So please keep that in mind. And when it comes to making this app easily available to your customers, there are some things that you might want to consider. For example, providing a link to the app directly on your website. This is something that you can do. If you have a website, you can link the App Store or the Android Store application directly onto your website. Another idea would be to include this information in an email campaign. You can send that link in that email that you send to the customer, or you could even send a text message with the link using CrossLink 2017 and the text link capabilities that the software has. So providing this link easily and quickly to your customers might be a good idea. And actually, some information that I received from a customer of ours is they plan on having the app already preloaded onto a tablet that they're going to have at the lobby, essentially, at their office. So instead of having the taxpayer, have to fill out this information manually on a piece of paper, they can just use the app at the lobby as they're waiting for their tax preparer, enter their information, submit it, and all that information would flow into the return automatically. I know of businesses that essentially use a receptionist to do this job, to enter in all that basic information for the return so that when the taxpayer goes to the tax professional, it'll be kind of already started. So this is something that the customer can do on their own while they're just sitting at the lobby. So that, again, reducing the amount of time and effort that you and your customers experience this upcoming season. So but if they want to download the app on their own phone, of course, that's perfectly fine. And once they do that, once they install and once they run the application for the first time, there is some minor registration that the taxpayer would have to do to get started with this app. And that includes entering an email address. And to that email address, we'll send a confirmation pin just to make sure that the email address is correct and that it's accurate. So that'll be part of this registration process, entering their email and then also confirming the pin that they'll receive to that email address. In addition to that, they also have to create a password for this app. This is the password that they'll use to launch the app. Whenever they launch the app will ask for their email address as a login, basically, and then the password that they set up here. And then finally, they'll have to enter in what we call a mobile app ID. Now, this piece is pretty important. You'll see here, if you look at the screen, at the field here on the bottom right, it does say that it's optional at this point, in parentheses. And that's because, when they first start this registration process, they don't have to enter the mobile app ID just yet. They could enter it later on before they submit the return to you. But they are going to have to enter it at some point. And the importance of this mobile app ID is that this is how the TaxPass app knows where to route the return. Whenever they submit that return, we have to know where to send it to, like what CrossLink 1040 program to send it to, and that's what the mobile app ID is all about. So we'll certainly review where you can find your mobile app ID and how you can distribute that information here in a bit. But once the customer finishes this registration process, then they'll be able to use the app as normal. They'll be able to start a return using the app, enter in all their basic taxpayer information, anything that you see on the client data, for example. They can do that on this app and then submit it to you. And of course, as well, take pictures of any documents, any IDs, anything that they have to send to you, they can do so with this app. And it'll all flow into the CrossLink 1040 program and be available to you as a return. Now, something that I should mention while we're on the subject of like uploading documents and sending that to you, keep in mind that at least for this upcoming tax season, the taxpayer can only send this information once. It's kind of like a bundle where they send in the tax return information and any documents associated with that. And we understand, that sometimes the taxpayer forgets to include everything. They may get some piece of important tax-related information in the mail, some months afterwards, and then they have to include that to the return. So we definitely want to, potentially for next year, for the following tax season after this one, have the capability of sending documents multiple times to the program. But for this year, keep in mind that it's just one initial transfer that the taxpayer can do of this information. Now, what we've seen so far is basically the taxpayer's experience with the TaxPass app, what they go through. But it's important to realize that there are some things that you should do to get ready for your customers that are going to be using this TaxPass app. One thing, like I mentioned previously, is to find your mobile app ID or also a QR code that we have available to you. I'll explain where exactly you can find your mobile app ID and the QR code here in a bit, but I wanted to mention a few other things before we get into that. In addition to the mobile app ID, you may also want to consider uploading your logo, because believe it or not, this is something that you can do. You can upload your logo so that it appears right on the app itself. For example, on this last screen, it says taxpayer name here, but you can replace that with your logo, and I'll show you how you can do that here in a few moments. And then finally, the last piece of information to keep in mind is where exactly you can find this TaxPass data. Whenever they send you or submit a return using the TaxPass app, how will you be notified of this, and where will you find this in the program? So I'll show you where you can do that as well. So let's get right to it. I'm going to go to the CrossLink 2018 program. Here we are right here. And first of all, let's find where you can locate your mobile app ID, because as I mentioned, that's going to be an important part of the registration process. What I've done is I've clicked on the website link that takes me straight to the website, to the CrossLink Tax website, and I'm going to log into my account here. Give me a few moments while I do that. And this is what you'll want to do as well. You'll want to log in to your account. And once you log in, you want to go to the Support tab up top here, Support, and then choose Mobile App Management. Once I click on this, I'll see all the user IDs associated with my business. If you were a multiple office setup, you'll see all of your different user IDs. In my case, I just have the one office, so I just have my one user ID here. And notice to the right, I have this QR code column. And if it's your first time visiting the site, it'll be a green plus sign, but I've been here previously, and that's why I have the ability to, that's why I have this other icon. But either way, click on this icon that appears underneath QR code, and what you'll find here is your unique mobile app ID. This is a piece of information that the taxpayer will need to set up the app. And in addition to that, you also have this QR code. And this is essentially the same thing, but it's just a different way of entering the information. Your taxpayer can either enter in this mobile app ID manually, or there's also a button so that they can scan the QR code. And this QR code, right now it's only available, on the website, but you can copy this image, save this image, and attach it to anything you'd like. You could include it in an email. You could attach it to any documentation, any printouts that you do. It's completely up to you how you want to distribute this image so that your taxpayers can see it. You could have it in the lobby, for example, as an image on the desk that they can scan. It's completely up to you. So now that you have your mobile app ID, if I go back to this page, you'll also find the area where you can upload your logo. So if you click on this, all you have to do is browse to the image that you want to use and you want to attach to the app and upload it after you browse it. And that's it. After that, the logo will automatically have that, the TaxPass will automatically have that logo associated with it, so that whenever your customers log in and use that TaxPass app, they'll see that logo front and center. Now, as far as where to find these TaxPass returns that have been submitted to you? Well, if I go back to my 1040 Returns tab, right here on the main page, on the Work in Progress Summary, you're going to see a new option called TaxPass Mobile App Retrieval. Here it is right here. And as your customers send information to you using this TaxPass app, you'll see the numbers start accumulating here. Every time you transmit with the software, note that transmitting is an important part. Every time you transmit with the software, even if it's a blank transmission, the program is going to pick up any of these returns that have been submitted to you using the TaxPass app. And you'll see a number here, similar to the way I have a number up here representing the amount of returns currently saved in the program. You'll have a number here representing the amount of returns submitted to you using the TaxPass app. And then if I click on TaxPass mobile app, you'll see something very similar to this, a screen that we're probably all used to, that'll list out all the returns that have been submitted to you using TaxPass. And then it's just a matter of opening it up, and all the information that they've submitted to you will be present in the return, giving you a heads up on preparing all this information for the taxpayer. So very, very useful, and I definitely urge you to mention this to your taxpayers, to talk about the TaxPass app and see how it works for you and see if it works for you. Now, returning to the PowerPoint that we have here, that's the TaxPass app, but keep in mind that we also have the ERO Go app available to you as well. This is useful for keeping track of what's happening at your office. With this app, you can see real-time reports as to what's going on with your business, year-over-year reports to compare current year with previous year stats. You can check the statuses of tax returns. You can communicate with your TaxPass users. So those folks that are using the TaxPass app and that are sending you messages through that app, this is how you can reply to those messages using ERO Go. And you can even request state packages. If there's a state form that you have to install in the program, you can queue that up using this app and make it available in the software. So as you can see, these two apps are completely integrated into the software, and we hope that it'll make this upcoming tax season more convenient than it's ever been. So those are our new apps that we have available to you as part of what's new in CrossLink 2018. But that's not all. In addition to this new mobile app integration, we have plenty of other things that we have to talk about. Lots of these things stemming directly from customer feedback. For example, one of the things that we heard frequently from our customers is you want the ability to delete documents that have been saved to the document archive. So what do you know? We've added that. You've wanted a faster way to remove returns from the transmit queue. So we've added that. More information on the client data, on the client lookup screen. More information transferred from prior year returns. Extended reports, additional states for business and corp. We've done all this for this upcoming tax season. Oh, and by the way, we have a whole new way to start and prepare a tax return. A new way that you can go through the process of a tax return from beginning to end, and specifically designed for those tax preparers that may not have much tax prep experience, that are maybe new to the game and are more used to a interview method of preparing the return. So that's what we made for you. We have a new way to prepare the return, and we call it Return Interview. So I'm a bigger fan of showing rather than telling. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like in the software. To see this, all you have to do is open up a brand new return. So I'll do that now. I'll enter in a social here. Oh, it looks like that one already exists, but I'll just add a new return. There we are. And one of the new things that you'll notice when you open up a brand new return in CrossLink 2018 is that we have this interview button here on the toolbar. So if you did want to experience this interview method, all you have to do is select or click on that interview button, and now we're going through the process of preparing this return as part of an interview. An easy way to understand the preparation of this return from beginning to end. Starting with the filing status. You would select whatever filing status is associated with this taxpayer, and it's all laid out easily, simply, easy to read. And if you need additional information, you have help tools integrated into it. You can click on this Help Me Decide button, for example, and I believe it's opening up another window here on my second screen. There we go. And it took you straight to an article that helps you figure out what the filing status is. So lots of useful tools directly on this page. And then once you make the selection, you can click on Next. And now we're entering the basic taxpayer information. All this information would be typically entered on the client data screen if you have experience in using the CrossLink 1040 program. But now it's essentially just laid out differently in a easy to understand format. So the tax preparer will just fill this out with all the appropriate information, check any options that may apply, and then at the bottom, click on Next. And now we have the address information. And you can keep going through this, and what'll happen is that the program will take you straight through from all the way from beginning to end. It'll take the preparer through this process. If they had any dependents to add, just double click to add it. Then you can add that information quickly and easily. And for example, here's the income interview page where you can choose what types of income this taxpayer had, whether it was a W-2, a 1099-G, just select them that way. And once you click on Next, you'll have the ability to add those forms directly through here. And one of the best things about this interview method is that you're not locked into it. Typically, when you have an interview method with a tax preparation program, you're kind of stuck using it. And if you want to go back or forward, you're forced to use buttons and kind of go through multiple pages to access areas that may be ahead of the return or prior information that you entered. But in CrossLink, it's all easily accessible, and you can jump from one page to the next. Notice here on the attached forms, we have this new area that breaks down all the areas of the return interview, starting with the filing status, which we saw, all the way to income, adjustments and deductions, state returns, even the filing option, how the preparer or how the taxpayer plans on getting a refund, whether or not they want a bank product, for example. All that's easy to understand and follows a natural flow. And again, if you want to if you want to go back, for example, and add a form manually, if you don't necessarily want to go to the income area and use it, and you just want to quickly add a W-2, you don't have to come back in here and select this box. You can go and use the traditional method of adding a form manually. It's this hybrid system that allows you to jump between the two. So, and it's all very quick and snappy, which is the way we like it with CrossLink. We want everything to be fast and easily accessible. Whenever you want to use the interview method, you can go into it. If you want to go straight to the client data and look at that information, you can. You're not locked into any particular method. Now that said, if you do plan on using this interview method, or if you have let's say you have a new preparer and you want them to start the return using this interview method, you can definitely do that. And I'll show you where you can do that now. If you go up to the setup menu and then choose login accounts, this is where you can see all the different logins associated with CrossLink 1040. In my case, I'm using admin, for example. And if I double click on my admin login, this is where you can go to make modifications to this login. And you'll notice a new checkbox here called Start Return with Return Interview. Well, so by selecting this box, now when this particular login, when they start a return, it's automatically going to start in this return interview method. And if by chance, later on, they don't want to use this method, they want to use the more traditional forms-based method, you can just remove this checkbox at that point. And by the way, now that while we're on this login preferences page, there are some other things that I wanted to bring up, some new enhancements to keep an eye out for. First of all, we have this signature pad type. Now, the preferred way of capturing a signature is login based. Before, it used to be kind of like tied to the program. Whatever you set, if you were using the Topaz signature pad, that meant that every user had to use the Topaz signature pad to capture signatures electronically. But now it can be set by login. So you can have certain users using a Topaz pad, you could have other users using a Scriptel, and finally you could have a few users using the on-screen capture or touchscreen to capture those signatures. So if you do plan on using different methods to capture electronic signatures, keep an eye out for this area. And in addition to that, we also have this little alternate return lookup colors option. And this simply will make the client lookup grid, it'll alternate the colors so that it'll potentially make things easier for you to see. I can show you what that looks like. If I come back here and then look at my lookup, that's the difference. You see how we have them alternating in colors? So if that looks like something you'd prefer, again, all you have to do is go to the Setup, Login Accounts, and modify your login so that it has these alternate return lookup colors. Okay. There's some things I wanted to bring up, some other new enhancements that we've made to the software inside the return. So let's open up one of these tax returns that I have here. And the one thing I wanted to bring up right at the top of the client data screen, you'll find it's a small thing, but I wanted to bring it up since it's new. Right here at the very top of the client data, we have the ability to select what language the client letter will print out on. Previously, this was tied to the login that we were just looking at a few moments ago, but now it can be set to the specific tax return. So if you need to change it, if you wanted to print out the client letter in Spanish, you can choose it directly here on the client data, specifically for that taxpayer. And in addition to that, we also have depreciation. When it comes to depreciation, something to note, if I open my depreciation here, we now have an easy way to transfer assets from one form to another. Right now, I have this truck that's associated with my Schedule C, but you'll notice that we have this new Reassigned button here. So if you click on this button, select the asset, and then click on this button, now you can reassign this asset so that it's part of the Schedule E, or you can reassign it directly to the car and truck worksheet associated with that. So if you manage lots of assets, and if you need to move an asset from one place to another, please feel free to use that Reassign button to make your life a little bit easier. Now, when it comes to deleting documents from the document archive, this is something that I mentioned previously, but if I go to my document archive here, you'll find a new button called Delete Document. So if you do scan a document by accident, which I know certain folks have experienced, in the past, the only way to get rid of that document was to essentially delete the return and recreate it, which I understand is definitely a hassle. But now you have the ability to select the document and delete it directly from here, hopefully making your life a way easier in that regard. Now, when it comes to the verification process, let's say you're all done with the return and you want to verify the tax return for errors. Well, we've enhanced that as well. Now, the verify process will look for valid PTINs. So when it comes to the PTIN information for your tax preparers, here it is right here, the PTIN field, the verify process will look and make sure that that PTIN is a valid number, which is very useful. And in addition to that, and very related to the verify process, we also have new audits. If you go to setup, let me do that again. Sorry if I went too quickly. If you go to setup and then office setup, this under the auth audits tab, this is where you can essentially go to add additional options to the verify process. If you wanted to make the verification process more strict and ask more questions of your tax preparers, this is where you can go to activate those options. And one of the new ones that we've added is under tax alerts. Here we used to have some 880 information about Form 880. That's been moved to the additional schedules and forms area. And we've enhanced this area, this bottom section here, with additional questions. So it's always a good idea when you're thinking about, what you want your verify process to look like. If you want it to be super simple and just look for those basic things that we know are going to cause a rejection, well, then you can not use any of these options that we have here. But if you did want to make the verification process more strict, make sure that your preparers are doing their due diligence, then you may want to come in here, take a look at some of these options and activate them if you find that they'll be useful to you. All right. And when it comes to printing the return, that's what we covered so far, is verifying the return. When it comes to printing, there are some new options as well. If I go to Setup and Printer Setup, I wanted to mention under the Print Options tab, and we're kind of getting into the weeds here, but it's a new option, and I did want to bring it up just in case you find that it'll be useful to you. We have this Do Not Print 1040 ES or 1040 estimate with the final return. So if you do have an estimate included with the return and you didn't want to include that in the print package when you print out the return, if you did not want to include that estimate form, you can select that box, and then the final 10 return will print without that 1040 ES included with it. And then also related to printing, we also have, if you look under the print menu, once you're inside the return, we have this paper file RT return option. And this is specifically for those tax returns that have a bank product associated with it, RT meaning refund transfer. In other words, a bank product of some sort. If by chance the return was rejected and you need to print out that return and paper file it, that's what this option is for. It'll print out a final return of the federal and the state, so you can file it specifically for those returns that include a bank product. So please keep that option in mind. Now, in addition to that, those are the options that we've included inside the return, but we have made some enhancements as well to our extended reports tool. And I'll show you what that looks like here. And by extended, what I mean is this little option that you find when you're on the client lookup screen. When you're looking at the screen where you see your customers listed out, notice that you have this extended reports tool. And this tool essentially allows you to build whatever report you want. It allows you to build a report depending on what type of information you want to see. And for example, I'll make a really basic report here. Let's say I wanted to create a report that includes my taxpayer's first and last name and their SSN, right? If I click OK here, it'll show me a list of all my customers, and it'll include this information, their first name, their last name, and their SSN. But we've added a few more options to this extended report tool. First of all, you can now include to see, here it is, the creator and owner of this return, essentially who created this tax return. This is a new option that you can choose to see as part of the report that you're running. In addition to that, we've added all the dependents information. This is something that wasn't available previously, but now you can take a look at any dependents and add that to the report that you're running. And we've also added this ITIN search, which is pretty useful, especially for those folks that prepare lots of ITIN returns. We have this ITIN returns search by middle digits. So, typically when you prepare an ITIN return, the social is comprised of all nines, which can be kind of difficult to keep track of which one's which customer are we talking about exactly. But now we've also added the ability to search by the middle digits of that ITIN return. So it could be 999 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example, as the social or as the placeholder social really for the return. So having this option will allow you to see all those different returns that begin with 999 and that may have different middle digits, and allow you to add that to the return. And then finally, there was one more, yes, the attached forms. So this top area, when you're talking about extended reports, this is the information that you're going to see displayed in the report. And this bottom area is how you filter the results. So if you want to see a particular type of taxpayer, you can choose how exactly you're going to be filtering the information displayed on this report. And one of the new ones that we have is part of this attached forms area. If I double click on that, for example, let's say I only wanted to see customers that have a Schedule C. Well, then I can choose that, and then now it'll show this information in the report, but it'll only show me the customers that have a Schedule C. But the new ones that we have as part of this attached forms are the ancillary products, such as Protection Plus, Refundo's Auto Protection. We've added those forms to this list. So if you only want to find those customers that have Protection Plus, you can add that as part of the attached forms, and it'll only show you those customers in the report. And then also any other types of ancillary products like Refundo's Auto Protection and things like that. You can search for those specific types of customers and see their information. And for those of you that haven't seen this extended reports tool, now that I've selected some options here, I can click OK. And this kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. See how it's building a list of all my customers, and it's showing exactly the information that I selected. That's the power of this extended reports tool. So we've enhanced the extended reports for the 1040 products. And in addition to that, we've also included it in our business returns package. If you're using our business returns package, you'll find this extended tool available as well here. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that because it's not available just yet, but just keep that in mind. When you do open up this tab later on, when you're preparing business returns, you'll find an extended tool there as well, specifically for those business and corporate returns. All right, and while we're on the subject of business, that's what I wanted to show you here. Yes, so we've added the extended reports to business, and then we've also added a couple of more states. Every year we try to increase the amount of states available for business. So just keep in mind that for this upcoming season, we have Colorado included, and then we also have Utah corporate forms supported as well. And when it comes to 1040 forms, some other things to keep in mind, some minor forms that you'd want to keep an eye out for. Know that we've enhanced our year-to-year transfer when it comes to the driver's license information that you typically enter on the client data, the driver's license for the taxpayer and spouse. Now that information transfers from the prior year to the current year. So that saves you a little bit of data entry. And then also the account numbers present on the 1099 div and the 1099 INT, that information as well will transfer from the previous year return. In addition to that, the 2-year tax comparison form, that now covers 3 years. So using that form will really give you a good sense of the taxpayer's history when it comes to their tax information. It'll cover the previous 3 years. And the 1099-Q, for those of you that prepare 1099-Qs, know that it now allows for negative earnings that will carry over to the Schedule A. And the 1099-R now includes a checkbox for qualified Roth distributions. And with that, we've covered everything that's new in the CrossLink 2018 program.